Yeah, art as a transformational practice. I actually, just before you came, I watched this video by CJ the X. They're a YouTuber that does sort of art analysis videos and gets really philosophical with it. And so like the topic was subjectivity in art. And you ever watch something that like perfectly encapsulates something that you've been thinking about or talking about, and it's like, finally someone expressed that thing in a way that I've been trying to do so. And so, yeah, art and what it means and what it's for and even what it is. Yeah, let's go there.
Yeah. I do not have a degree in this. I'm not an expert. If conditions do not improve, call your doctor. Well, so we know that we're wired to respond to rhythm, right? Sound of the human voice. We've got some old instruments.
Yeah.
What is art and why? Especially, I think, in an age, well, it's been going on a long time now. Hang on. Because I'm pretty sure there was graffiti there. There had to be graffiti in the Great Pyramids.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Because you can't have that kind of power structure without people, going, nope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Art. I actually really don't know. For myself, I don't know why I do what I do. I just feel driven to do it. It's the thing that comes out.
Yeah.
I can play a lot of different roles, sitting behind a desk or, slinging hash, whatever, but art's going to squeak out of me, no matter my best intentions. To the contrary. So why art? Why do we create? Because we can. We can. I think it's the same as, why have sex without procreating? We can. It feels nice.
Yeah.
So we do. Tell me some of your views, because you've thought a lot about this, and I'm like, I'm also coming off of Zoom meetings and stuff. And let's prime the pump a little.
Yeah. So I specifically am a musician. I dabbled a bit in some visual art. In fact, before music took all of my passion in like middle school, I think before then I asking fifth graders like what they want to do for the rest of their lives, which is a really strange thing to do. But at that time I was like, I will be a comic book illustrator. And I was like hell bent on that. And I have not done like visual art in like a specific just drawing sense probably since middle school.
Yeah. Let me ask you, what stopped you?
Music.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me about the first second. I don't mean to hijack your interview.
No,
I'm just really curious.
But right. And the nature of the second podcast is not an interview anyways. So we'll just go. So yeah, it's more that like students only have so much time to do what they can and want to do on top of the homework and the assignments and the stuff. So it's, if I could have been involved in more arts, I would have. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, I was always great in art class and I think I did take like an art class in my senior year of high school.
Was that in Oklahoma?
Yes. I did grow up here. I was born in Venezuela, but I don't know Venezuela. And so, yeah, I went to PC North and I had like, all of my time was taken up by music. And so I started trombone in middle school. I would have liked to have done percussion, and now I have drums. That's actually a fairly recent development, and so
it's a good looking set.
Yeah, I'm enjoying sucking at drums.
Hey, that's great. Yeah. I think we don't do a lot of things because we're afraid of the suck factor. We're afraid of failing.
Yeah.
No, I think that's why I never tried with music. Or why I got so skittish around it. I was so afraid of failing.
Yeah, there's so much like standards, right? Of like what is good music, and we'll get back to the art thing eventually, but like, and that's kind of a part of it, right? But yeah, I was a scorned percussionist. It would have been my first choice had there not been too many percussionists, and so I did band, and I also wanted to do choir because I was super involved in choir. I'm a singer primarily. And so like in elementary school, they have music class and you all sing in the choir. And I was in like some extracurricular stuff, even in elementary school with choir. And so in high school, I was like, no, screw it. I'm going to do as much as I can with both. And so I did band. Marching band is this very interesting cult devoted to like this communal effort of making a good show. And so I was a drum major as well. I conducted in front of the band, and I had enough musical talent to like not have to practice outside of like class. But yeah, so I also did choir, and that just like doing band and choir is like, it just fills up the time.
That's
meter.
A lot.
Yeah. And then whenever the like school musicals would happen, I would also do those. And so if I could have done drama as well, I would have done it. If I could have done art, I would have done it. If I could have done debate, I would have done it. But there's only so much time that, and you got to do math apparently. So, so over time, I went to college for, I did 2 years of vocal music ed. I figured I might as well like find a job in it. But like my real passion was to just like make music myself as an artist. And yeah, so I took a class called History of Video Game Music, and video games has always been like a huge part of my life. And so the plan was like, I'll get my bachelor's in music ed, and then I'll do the associates in production that they have at ACM. But the end of the second year of vocal music ed, I took that history of video game music class, and I was like, no, I'm doing production now. And so I got my associates, then bachelor's in production. I have a master's in music composition. And so I've thought a lot about music and art as far as like what it is, how we can make it effectively, what we're doing, and sort of why. Unfortunately, there's not enough philosophy in music education. So I've always been a philosophy hobbyist. And that's part of the reason for this podcast, is that I get all of my philosophizing done here. And so, yeah, it's my way of getting deep into things. So going all the way back to just like art, what is it? Why? Art is communication. Yeah. It's communication without necessarily words, because words by themselves aren't the communication necessarily. Right. Whenever you perform poetry, it's more than just the words. Whenever you sing lyrics, it's more than just those words, but the melody and the context and the rhythm and all of that. And so we are communicating something. and the process of figuring out how to communicate something and figuring out what we're trying to communicate and how to do so is the thing. And that is what transforms us in the process. But also it makes it to where we do still have some sort of idea of what like good or bad art is, for better or for worse. And you can go the full subjective route, which is just like all art is subjective and what someone enjoys may not be what everyone enjoys, and that's okay. And then there's the objective side, which is just like, this is objectively good art because of reasons that we can actually analyze and get into, and this is less good art because of those reasons as well. And a lot of the objective side can probably be chalked up to like, my opinion is true, which is true.
And I may be lying.
Yes. Right. But there is some truth to that. And so if art is communication, there is more and less effective forms of communication.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Sorry, that was a lot.
No, never apologize. With the idea of art as communication, I agree. Language is a construct, and that construct, as you were talking in the first podcast about free will and, the conditions under which we're communicating, language has evolved to really more and more have us meet each other on a very surface, fractionated, and literal level. And creative expression as a form of communication to the listener or the viewer or the person experiencing it evokes metaphoric thought. It's taps into places in us that language can't reach. And as such, I think it is inherently subjective because it's all communication. That being said, within certain forms and constructs, there are value markers which are valid. Yeah. If I am going to see a chamber ensemble, if it sounds like a pet store burning down, I'm probably going to be a little disappointed. Yes. My expectations have not been met. Now, what is art? I'm angry that we only have one word for it. Yeah. It really is like...
And it's 3 letters for whatever reason.
Yeah. Art. One syllable. Yeah. That's it. It's like, what is it in the indigenous cultures that have like how many hundreds of words for snow, depending on the type of snow? Sure. We have one for art. And, I can't get binary in language with the enormity of what that little itty bitty signpost of letters represents. So, yeah, I tend to be more on the freewheeling sphere. That being said, do I want to sit around and listen to somebody who has I will get annoyed if I show up to watch somebody's work or listen to their work, and there's, it's like 6 hours with no breaks or, okay, well, that's not for me. But for that person, there's room in the world for their expression.
Yes.
So great. If I don't like it, I don't have to be there. But I just enjoy witnessing what people choose to put into the world. There's a lot of people, I think, who are probably closeted creators who create only for themselves and they never share it with the world. Is that still art?
Yeah. And I would say so.
Is it good or bad?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so it's always, it's so funny that we exist in all of these spheres and we don't spend enough time trying to like really describe the thing that we're actually talking about. And so for the longest time, I've done 8 years of like actual education in music. And for whatever reason, like really only in the master's level did we actually talk about what music is. And it just seems a little late to get to that point, but the shortest way I've been able to describe at least music because of the medium is just sound with intent.
Sound with intent. Yeah.
And so the joke is, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, is it music? No. If a tree falls in the forest and you record it and then show it to people, then it's music.
So it depends on an outside viewer or observer.
Yes. So okay. I think art does in some ways require observers, right? And so in that CJ the X video that I mentioned, they brought up this catalog of photography that this woman had done. There was just like thousands and thousands of negatives not developed, left in a storage unit that was then auctioned. The woman died before the person who bought all of those negatives was able to reach them. But he discovered this beautiful just catalog of just amazing photography, and like is objectively just like really good photography.
It moved you.
Yeah. But like no one experienced that art in the photographer's lifetime. And so it's this weird liminal state of like, was it art? It only existed as negatives. So it wasn't even able to like truly be perceived as art as it was created. But then the person who got the photography was then able to kind of turn it into art.
But what about the role of the artist? She saw fit to hit the shutter at a certain moment.
Yeah, exactly.
And that act of capturing it at that moment.
That was art, yeah.
Well, if it's art then, what does it stop being art just because nobody sees it? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a different art. It's a different work, actually.
Okay.
In a way that like, yeah, the art sort of requires an experience. And so there's like the art that happens when the photo is taken. And then again, the art that happens when someone experiences it.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. I mean, for my and that's actually a really interesting rabbit hole to go down. For me, it's semantics, and but I am kind of jazzed by the idea of having, it shifts forms when it moves from the artist into the public.
Yeah.
I'm a process junkie. So much more so than I appreciate a good product.
Yeah.
But I think most of my life has been so product focused that now I'm much more interested in how we're creating it together and the trails we're discovering together along the way. But yeah, I guess it does change form. I accept the argument.
Sure. And I'm not even really making an argument, but yeah.
No, it's the word
discussion.
The discussion. Yeah.
Yeah.
The word. Communication, and I think it is necessary. What about if art is used for manipulation?
Yeah.
What's that like? Yeah.
Communication is happening.
Communication is happening. Right. It could be propaganda. It could be
right.
Right.
And then the artist kind of does still matter in that regard too. In that,
you did that. Sorry, I just saw that. That's beautiful.
Well, so the painting there, my wife did, the Machinations poster is not my art, but it was a concert that I did. That was for my graduate thing. A great artist that I got to know when I worked at Sprouts. I was like, hey, I'm doing this concert. Will you do one of those things that you do?
Very cool. Yeah.
And Nathan Kent is that artist.
Rock and roll.
Yeah, my graduate composition performance thing is kind of the biggest thing I've pulled off. It I had 42 musicians play my music over. Yeah, so it's and I know we're going way beyond, but yeah.
Well, there's somebody with a score sheet right now who's now they're veering from that. Well, no, I don't.
Yeah,
it's I'm a process junkie. I'm cool. Yes. Yeah, you're fine.
I mean, you can now consume it in video form as
great.
It exists. SantiagoRamones.com/machinations. And yeah, the graduate program requirement probably only needed 4 or 5 pieces from me. I did 11.
Wow.
And so it was a couple electronic pieces, an electroacoustic piece with a choir, a art song, a choir piece, a piano solo, a short opera, brass quintet, and 2 big band jazz pieces.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, I hope to eventually record that with professional musicians that aren't just really busy college students.
Right.
And get a better form of that. But I'm actually going to use this to tie back into the conversation that we're having, which is that the art that you experience whenever you watch those videos is different from the art that you experience if you were in the room whenever it happened. And so it's you can watch video of a Sparklahoma performance, but it's not the same as actually being there in the context of just even how hot it was outside and how the wind was blowing and what had happened prior to seeing that performance, and all of those things contribute to the art experience. And so, yeah, we shape the art in the way that we perceive it.
Or consume it. Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I wake up every morning with some random song in my head. And it's random. And they're not even songs that I necessarily like, but I know the words to them.
Yeah.
And so I can sing along to them. Does that mean, but that doesn't mean that I like them.
Yeah.
But for me, that's another part of, how humans process things. Oh, I've heard this over and over again. Therefore I can repeat it exactly, but the different subject. Speaking about live performance, that's where I live, because it can't be repeated. There's something so magical about gathering, something ritualistic about gathering to experience something with others live, that feels so primal. And that's a thing that I feel like we've kind of moved away, we've moved away from it. Where are our rituals now?
Yeah.
And the role of art in ritual.
Yeah.
I think rituals can be considered a form of art. It is communication. And how are we? Yeah, I guess I'm just curious, like if I were able to take some sort of large historic view, what would this period in our lives artistically be called?
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like it's so informed by recording, and the fact that we're able to record everything, that, I mean, one, speaking in the context of history only exists because of record. And so we have recorded history being history, because anything before that is like, we can't actually pin down. And so we can't really know what pre-music notation cultures music sounded like, because it only existed in the air in those moments that they happened. And we probably have, probably even more than like 50,000 years of art history that doesn't actually exist, because, we were only focused on like these past 10,000 years. Give or take. I'm not an archaeologist.
Yeah, for sure. When I think about that, of how us as just as the human species, we tend to think of history as like, oh, everything was stupid back then. We got the answers now. Like they were so primitive, they had no idea, and that we're smart now. Civilized to death, the price of progress.
This is a book that I am reading.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, but it was just like really relevant. It's a book about how civilization is not necessarily progress, which is what you just said. Sorry, continue.
No, I mean, civilization, one could also argue the forms of music that we're aware of that happened in the past. We're aware of them because someone made the decision that it was worth recording or archiving or preserving. Yeah. And what was that person's motivations? What was excluded? That crosses every realm of human experience, from science to culture to the arts, to religion. Somebody, usually a dude, was making the decision of, this is good. This is what we're going to keep. What were the other expressions? Yeah. It could be there were some punk rock people back in the, in the Wayback Machine, who were really fighting against or rebelling against the culture. I mean, we can take the 1700s, for example, that were really rebelling against that culture, but there's no record of them because they were not in power, and I don't know, there's, who makes the decisions of what we have known to be as history.
Right. Yeah. And history really just records power.
History just records power. Yeah.
That's not necessarily a quotable statement I intended to make, but there you go. And I mean, so I work on podcasts, and one of the podcasts I work on is a book podcast, and one of the guests is a indigenous like radio host, writer, activist, and he's Lakota, Teokusan Ghost Horse is his name. And there seems to be a common theme in the Book Society podcast, the podcast I work on, about like archaeology and history and indigenous peoples sort of interacting with that, and how the institution of archaeology has rejected notions that like come from indigenous people.
Absolutely.
Simply because the sources aren't in such a way that archaeology recognizes. And so, like indigenous people's oral history it goes way farther back than written history, and is actually really accurate, and actually has contributed to, like, for example, indigenous people in a certain area had stories of like this ancient battle between two behemoths or whatever, and like mammoths, and they like the story told where it happened, and they looked, and those bones were there.
Wow. Yeah. The colonizer mindset of really my way or the highway, of savagizing, thugification, patriarchy, all of it, although I'm part of it, whatever. Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm come from colonizers. There's no room for human story. There's no room for anecdote or oral histories, because it's hearsay.
Sure.
It's not quantifiable. Well, quantifiable to who? And that's really where I think those rabbit holes that's probably what got me questioning everything and having a little bit more of a dunno. Because I only know what I've been told, but I also know that what I've been told has been told from a skewed perspective that never really considered me as, as a viable bit of society. So, it gets real complex really quick, and I can get pretty overwhelmed by that. I love philosophy and I love theory, and the thing I know to focus on is the why and the human connections that are now, and those are the places that I know that I can center myself. So that's kind of what I go for. Yeah. Man, this is going to keep me up all night. Thanks. I'll be calling you at 3 a.m. Go, no, Santiago, I meant to say that.
Please.
Spinoza is kind of right.
A couple threads I want to pull on, process and then metaphor, but which are gigantic. But yeah, so in the experience I've had through making music, I have two different realms in which I make music, which is like process based and then intuitive based. And so the process based is just like, I'm going to set up some guidelines, and that will contribute to what gets made. And sometimes that becomes extremely procedural, and it's just like, I'm just going to lay this out exactly this way, and then the chips will fall where they do, and that is the music. And procedural music can be really interesting and really fun depending on how creative you are at setting up those structures. Because there's also lots of times where the structure kind of kills the music. Yeah. And I've definitely made those pieces as well.
Well, for sure. And actually, thank you, because I'm learning that, like the words for snow, I think our definitions might be a little different, because I'm coming at it from a non-academic standpoint. Sure. Tell me more about the intuitive.
Yeah. So intuitive is kind of exactly that. I am hearing, the sounds that are in my head, and I will then audiate enough to turn that into some sort of recordable thing that then can be played back. Whether it be sheet music or just a audio recording. But yeah, and a lot of times that also comes with poetry and that whole thing. But yeah, it's like in all music creation anyways, it's still the was it Michelangelo or Raphael, I forget who, the chiseling away at the marble that isn't the statue.
Right, Michelangelo and David, right.
And that's kind of more of how I intuitively create, which is just like, I hear what the music wants to be. Uh-huh. I'm going to move towards it.
Find it, right. Yeah. Where does, between process and intuition, where does improvisation lie?
Improvisation is probably more so in process for me.
Okay.
Because I am not a skilled enough instrumentalist or singer to be able to make music that I enjoy straight from intuition.
Okay. All right.
Does that make sense? It's like, I can't just pick up a guitar and play anything because I'm not that good at guitar. And so instead, I set up little structures for me. What key are we in? What is the time signature? What tempo? And those are structures hopefully used to play along with other human beings. But I still need those guidelines to be able to improvise within those ideas. But yeah, I haven't spent enough time specifically on being an instrumentalist or being a singer in that regard, so that I can just take whatever comes out of me and enjoy it as it is, because I have musical standards that have been beaten into me for years of music education.
All right. Yeah, I get it. Please watch Evan Mazunik's TEDx talk. Okay. On musical education and towards a new path for that. Let me just add that in there, because he starts talking about the rigid didacticism in musical education and what he believes is missing. And then he gives a demonstration, and I would love for you to check that out. He will say it much more elegantly than I can. But okay, so let me query you here just a little bit. Because again, I haven't taken a lot of time to think about my own art form so much. I can think about what I want to try to do, but not necessarily the why or the how of what I do. Sure. Which makes me hell at writing grants, because people really want to know, what's your process?
What is it going to be?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I do the thing.
Yeah.
You tell me what you think. But because, okay, this conversation that we're having, this is improvisation. Yeah. It's not scripted.
Yeah.
Right. When you listen back to it, even though you have standards for podcasting, you can listen back to it, and based on how it goes, you can say, oh, well, that was successful, right? Okay. So if you take that same concept to a musical conversation that it achieves a sense of connection and communion with a beginning, middle, and end. You know, could that also be good?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And how is that not improvisation? Why do you have to be a better guitar player? I would say that all that you necessarily need are some basic skills and the ability to listen deeply and respond authentically.
Yeah. There's the difference between what my mind wants to music as a verb and the difference between what my hands are capable of musicking. And so it's more of like trying to get, like, I would be more effective if I could just music directly out of my head.
I understand.
And if I had like worked at an instrument long enough to be able to do that, I would, which is why I'm a composer. I just spend a lot of time as a hermit and I put all the stuff together perfectly and then I show it to people.
I got it. I do. I'm just, I'm always curious how do people do?
Yeah.
I'm also asking this of myself, right? Because I was not trained as a singer. I sing. I love to sing. I was not trained as a singer. And that inhibits me to really try. And for me, it's a crying damn shame because, okay, maybe what makes me an expert in whose eyes, whose permission do I need to express myself in that way? But I also liken it to, I have a lot of friends from different countries who don't speak English well. And I have very basic French. Sounds better here than it does in Paris. And even though neither one of us might be experts in the language that we're speaking, we can still find glorious and beautiful ways to communicate.
Yeah.
And my belief is that can be done musically, even if your hands aren't able to make the virtuosic leaps that you think they should or could. You're trying to find communication.
Yeah. And, that's the compromise that we make every time.
Compromise. Oh, that word. Damn it. Yeah.
Which is just like, there's a thing I want to do. I can't do all of it, but I'm going to go for as much as I can.
Yeah.
And that is what allows for more creation. If we are stopping ourselves every time, it's like, well, I can't make the perfect thing. It's like, no, just make a thing. And yeah, I mean, so like, while I would say it's like, oh yeah, I'm not, skilled enough, again, using the example of guitarist to say everything I want to on the guitar. That doesn't mean I'm going to not play the guitar. I still play guitar. But, the process then becomes like every time you are expressing something, you get a little bit better at expressing the thing that you want to.
Right. And there are some musicians like, oh yeah, here comes Steve. He's going to say the same thing again. Yeah. I think we get in comfort zones with anything, and it's terrifying to get out of them. You mentioned being perfect. So many of the artists I know, and myself included, we really struggle with perfectionism. It's my art. Yeah. I want it to be right. I want it to get out there. And man, that can be a real buzzkill. Which is why I enjoy live composition. I would love to teach you some of this to see how you would work with it.
Yeah.
Because every person comes at it with a different thing to chase. But there's no time. You are learning in the instant. You give some signs, things are rolling, and you think that somebody's going to come in with some kind of quality of something. When you give them a sign, they misread it. They come in with something entirely different. That's not a mistake.
Exactly.
Okay, that's the next movement of the piece, or that's going to become a recurring theme, or that's, and making all of these decisions in the instant based on this constant, beautiful, evolving conversation, that it just feels so alive to me.
Yeah.
And it has been my creative home for a very long time. And sometimes it doesn't work at all. We hit clams all over the place, and you can lean into it. Mm-hmm. The nice thing about creating in the instant is, all right, great, we can start again. Mm-hmm. I would love to see you. Tackle
and
this.
I would love to try it as well. And
great.
The fun part and the awesome part about having just an open improvisation, like the fact that everyone knows that it is improvised, means that perfection has never been on the table.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And that's something. So during my master's, I was part of a trio called Power Cycle, and we were 3 electronic composers that, we focused a lot on improvisation. And I went to UCO, and UCO doesn't have much of anything as far as electronic anything goes. Oh, wow. And so our instructor, Dr. Keith White, was like, dragging the School of Music kicking and screaming into the future. And was like, all right, we're going to have a concert every month of new music. It's going to be experimental electronic music. And we, the 3 of us put on a concert every month of new music.
How exciting. Yeah. Right in the middle of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
And there was a lot of like, hey, I don't really know where this is going, but like, here's sort of the idea for the piece. And I was like, all right, cool. Here's the idea for the piece. Yep. And so the concerts are great. There's an album of Power Cycle on Spotify. No one listens to it, but it's fine. Which is just like an entirely improvised album. It's called Too Many Damn Cables.
Great. Too Many Damn Cables. Yes.
And that like freedom to improvise, make some really cool stuff. And it's not just that it was improvised, is that the fact that it was the 3 of us communicating with each other. Mm-hmm. And, Jonathan did this one thing, and it's like, cool, we're going to follow that. Or Breck is doing this cool motif. Let's keep going in that direction and seeing where that goes. So,
yeah. I mean, and that doesn't have to be everything. I also have come from a long tradition of people who belong in camps, or I'm sorry, that's actually a loaded metaphor, but you're either theater or musical theater, mm-hmm. or you're Beatles or Stones, or you're blah, and it's just, where is nuance? Mm-hmm. Where is nuance anymore? So, you don't. One does not negate the other, I'm just very curious what the relationships are between them, mm-hmm. Between that intentionality, and does it have to do with free will?
Sure. Yeah. And one last thing on the point of like process and improvisation is that I did try like, leaning into the fact that like, we're not primarily skilled in maybe this instrument or this practice. And so in one of our last concerts, we did 3 sets of a piece that I just called primarily secondary. And so I'm a vocalist and guitarist, and Breck is a pianist and vocalist as well, and Jonathan is a cellist. And what we did is I was like, all right, we're going to force ourselves onto each other's instruments.
Oh, nice.
And so, not cello, because cello is an expensive instrument. Yes. So we didn't experiment on that. But so we went through and it's like, all right, I'm going to play piano and I'm not primarily a pianist, but I know some things. And then we would rotate through the instruments. And so it's like, I had them play like on this thing, which is just a grid-based instrument. It doesn't look like a piano. It doesn't look like a cello. It doesn't look like a guitar. And then I also had them all trying stuff on guitar. And so we just rotated on that and like, let's see what comes out of this. And specifically what the, lack of expertise in an instrument, I guess, produces. Yeah.
Wow. Huh. What was your big takeaway from that?
That the voice remains.
The voice remains. Yeah. Yeah.
That each of us still have a way that we music, and it, regardless of the thing that we were playing on, it still sounded like Breck or Jonathan or Santiago. So yeah.
Cool. I love that you use music as a verb. The way that we music. That's great.
I think it was in like one of the books that we read, but like, yeah, it's a process of making music. And so, yeah, it is musicking, or performance art can be arting in that regard. Yeah.
Arting. Who arted? Yeah. Well, I mean, also, we call it play, which I think is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, to me, also a very important element of art, because we get our shoulds, kind of rolling from an early age. And once that starts, play becomes very difficult to find.
Yeah. And I wonder if it's one of the many things that contributes to the like devaluing of music as an art form, in that we call it playing, and it's like, oh, well, that's not legitimate. We can't have like people just playing. We got to have people working all the time. And that's
according to who?
Yeah.
I mean, you still got to make money, but yeah, according to capitalism, according to the existing power structures, according to blah. Yeah. Yeah. No accounting for taste.
Right.
Yeah. Don't you dare have fun. But that's somehow finding ways to take delight in the joy that moves through you. I think it's important for the soul. And if that manifests in music that you're not necessarily fabulous at, academically speaking, so, there's still room for your expression.
Yeah.
So, I am fascinated always by the line between professionalism and amateurism. Just because you make money at something is not necessarily an indicator that you're a generous artist, or yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, given what our culture values, is something making a lot of money a accurate indicator for the quality of the thing?
No, but man, is advertising, what an amazing thing that we created. Advertising. Yeah.
I hate it. Marketing is the bane of my existence.
Oh man, dude. So I do audiobooks, but before I got into audiobooks, I was in advertising, voiceovers for quite a long time. And man, it's just, you learn, like for medical things, we have kind of pleasant bell tones, and the way you hit the name of the company, you state the problem, but then you hit the name of the company and it gives a little bit of hope. And then when it comes for the medical disclaimer on the television, you're going to see like a kid with a butterfly net. Like, oh, he's almost got it. He's almost got it. Where my voice is like, may cause immediate incontinence. If your grandmother's head explodes, call your doctor immediately. It may cause your stock prices to plummet. And I'm supposed to deliver those in very rapid bell tones that sound very blah-blah-blah, that naturally make you tune out. Mm-hmm. And there's a science to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can be big money.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And to me, I guess, given my values, that to me is gross. And so, yeah, what you were talking about, like manipulation. And yeah, so it's like, if something makes a lot of money, is it really an indicator of it being good?
No, but we're so hardwired to, we're monkeys who've evolved by watching other monkeys open up the things and eat them.
Yes.
Or fall off the thing and get hurt. Whatever. That's how we learn. And we are hardwired to learn from other people. And if all of the media we're consuming is like, well, this has got this many likes. Well, our lizard brain, our monkey brain goes, oh, I got to do that.
Yeah. Big number good. I got to
incorporate that. Big number good. Shiny thing good.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people good. And somehow unplugging with that to find a sense of integrity beyond the market. Wow. that's there. I love to see that there's a punk scene, here again. Mm-hmm. How amazing. I was part of the one back in the day. And I love to see some subversion happening, some disruption happening. And I struggle with that with Spark. I pass for a soccer mom. I have been in sort of the art realm here, which is a very strange liminal place where bougie meets poor people. And I can walk very comfortably in that sphere. And where my passion and all of my activities lie are, okay, you extraordinary humans from many different backgrounds, let's get in here and play. And how could I leverage both of those to be mutually beneficial?
Yeah.
To educate one and to elevate another. I don't know yet, but that's sort of what we're exploring. I just went all around the world. Yeah, I did. All right, come on back.
Well, yeah, but the question then becomes is like, how do we live off of it? Because again, it's like, it sucks that the things that we make have a value that is not necessarily money, and yet we still need the money. So we are trying to leverage that. I'm trying to leverage that. We're all trying to leverage that. In that, I had Rat Fink on, and he was talking about how there's a 50% what you like, 50% what I like. And so it is a very intentional decision that we have to make as artists to be like, all right, here's one so that I can get some sort of popularity, so that I can get some sort of money. And then here's one that I need for my artistic expression. And whether you like it or not doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? We got to eat. Yeah. Running a nonprofit is not easy at all. And it is not, I would not call it lucrative. And yet it's also satisfying to bring a form of social legitimacy to experimental art forms.
Yeah.
And we're just getting started. But yeah, it's a tender place, especially in this place.
Mm-hmm. What, this is going to sound like really cynical, what gets the wallets to open up?
The fact that we're focused on joy and love and connecting communities, bringing together artists and people from many different spheres who normally don't really have an opportunity to interact, to come together over performance. What gets the wallets to open up? Right now, right now it's me pleading with a lot of my friends, like, okay, go on. No, but there is an excitement about starting something new and shifting a paradigm, because I think the funding landscape here and people here understand that there's a lot of consumables. There's a lot of things to consume. And yet somehow it seems not necessarily fresh, like it's a cycling of a different narrative in a different way. And to see something that's not been tried before, that's not been done before, people are like, oh, well, that's okay. Let's try.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I'm finding for now.
And it's funny because it's scary to think that the thing that people are interested in, and this goes to like every musician, it's like the thing that people are interested in is actually the thing that makes it the thing. Like, if you just actually do it, the people that want it will try to support it.
I'm so glad you say this, because the thing that makes us, Spark, when we're rolling, when we're performing, and this is kind of a thing that I say to myself and the group before every public show or experience, is, all right, this is for us. The moment that we begin to be performative and try to anticipate what the audience wants, we're going to lose it. Mm-hmm. If we are all chasing the same beautiful, elusive stranger at the same time, they'll follow us. We're inviting them to be part of this process.
Yeah.
And I've had some great conversations with, like, Romy Owens is an artist in Enid, who is a magnificent artist who has done a lot of and continues to do very huge works that are outside of the norm. And Romy and I have had many conversations, and the one we had this morning was, she said, of all the artists that I follow throughout the world, the artists who are really focused in on the thing that is important to them, not what they think the audience wants, if they're really chasing that, that's what I admire. And that allowing space for that integrity, we go, yeah, well, we got to eat. Yeah, we do have to eat. And that's very real. Mm-hmm. And you might have to do some other things for the coin. But I so admire in others, and I'm learning to express it myself, to show up in exactly who I am, not in anticipating what the audience wants, or what I think they might want, in my fears, in my intimidation. If I'm chasing the thing that fascinates me, I find that people will follow. Some won't, not everybody. Mm-hmm. But by and large, I think a lot of us, more than we realize, really yearn to express ourselves fully. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of the human condition. And watching artists work, that gives us a bit of a voyeuristic thrill because it gives us a little frisson of an idea of what that might be like. And if we're in our integrity, maybe that's going to illustrate for somebody else a path for them to do it themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
How are we?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Time just flies in here.
It does.
There is another thread I wanted to pull on, but given that this is an hour-long podcast, and I know that metaphor is too much of a thread to pull on and be short about it. But yeah, any parting thoughts before we do the plugging thing?
I think that in general, the general public is much more capable of accepting, understanding, and listening to metaphor than what they're normally given credit for. We are beat over the head with literalism every damn day. And I think giving people the opportunity to tap into metaphoric thought is a way of deepening connection. And I think we can lean into that a little bit these days.
Yeah. I definitely agree.
Oh, to be continued. Yay.
Nicole, thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thank you, Santiago, for the invitation. This has been an unexpected and necessary delight.
Where can people find you and your things?
Me and my things are, I'm the executive director of Spark Creative Lab, aka Spark. You can find us at sparklahoma.com, sparklahoma.org. We're a nonprofit now, yeah. And Instagram, Sparklahoma. My personal site, hopefully it'll be updated by the time you hear this, NicolePoole.com. And Instagram at RogueOkie.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's for real. Thank you so much. I'm Santiago Ramones.
Yay, I'm Nicole Poole.
You can find everything that I do on my website, SantiagoRamones.com. I make music and produce audio. The music you're hearing now is music I made. You can listen to official releases by Santiago Ramones on Spotify, Apple Music, and the other streaming places. Or you can support me directly by buying my music on Bandcamp. I'm working on Hypothetical, my first singer-songwriter album, so if you'd like to hear that at some point, there are lots of ways to support me on my website. There's a Discord server in which we discuss deep topics from the podcast, but it's also a community of beautiful human beings. All the links to all my things are on my website, SantiagoRamones.com. Please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. It would mean a lot to me to hear what you have to say, and it lets others know what to expect, better than I could ever explain. I want to help the world have deeper conversations, so thank you for listening to and supporting Bit Depth. I was in the podcast with my 3 things. They shape my life philosophy. Those 3 things are: love never fails, it's going to be okay, I might be wrong.